Camping with a Skinwalker. 3 insane true horror stories that haunt you forever. The night was thick with anticipation. It was the kind of feeling that crawled under your skin and whispered that something wasn't quite right. If there was ever an adventure that could go south in a heartbeat, it was camping in the woods, especially when stories of skinwalkers danced through the air like a 9-minute horror movie nobody wanted to star in. Legend had it that these shapeshifters could mimic the voices of loved ones, luring brave souls deeper into the darkness, where only silence echoed back. You could almost feel the damp chill of uncertainty creeping into every corner of the forest as dusk settled. Ben and his friends gathered around the flickering campfire, its light creating exaggerated shadows that twisted ominously. The pine trees seemed to close in, foliage rustling like secrets. "Look, remember the last guy who went missing around here?" Jake said, his voice trembling, and the flame illuminated the fear in his eyes. "They say he tried to follow a voice. It sounded like his mom calling him, only it wasn't her." Laughter erupted in nervous bursts, but deep down, every one of them felt it, that gnawing fear clinging like shadows. One by one, odd noises interrupted their banter. A soft rustle, a twig snapping. Every sound felt amplified. The whisper of the wind turned into hushed tones, ominous and taunting. Then came the unmistakable echo of a woman's voice, faint but eerily close. "Help me please." The air froze with uncertainty, leaving a pit in their stomachs. Couldn't be, could it? Before they could process the weight of what they heard, a cool breeze swept through their camp, extinguishing the fire. Darkness engulfed them, heavy and thick. The only light came from Ben's phone screen, illuminating their wide eyes, reflecting raw panic. "What the hell was that?" Maya whispered, her voice barely above a breath, her hands trembling. Every instinct screamed to run, yet they were paralyzed, chained by fear and the unknown. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just when they thought they were imagining things, the voice returned clearer this time, but strained. "You know me? Ben, help me." It sounded almost like a plea, like a twisted echo of familiarity. Ben's heart raced. Was it his imagination? Or was the voice truly breaking through the veil of darkness? Panic trickled into every inch of his body. They had to go, but where to run? The trees, once guardians of adventure, now loomed as barriers, their secrets veiled in the inky blackness. In that moment, as dread consumed them, another sound pierced through, a laugh. Deceptively innocent, yet infusing their blood with ice. It curled around them like smoke. Every instinct screamed to stay put or flee in different directions. But where could anyone hide in the woods? The laughter grew louder, more frantic in its delight, feeding off their fear. And as if the universe itself was pulling back the curtain on horror, the unmistakable shadow of a figure appeared in the distance. The friends froze, locked in a web of dread and fascination. But the real question submerged within that moment was, what did it want? What would they discover when the night finally unmasked its secrets? The figure shifted, a silhouette dancing against the faint light of Ben's phone. Every heartbeat crashed in Ben's ears as he squinted, desperately trying to make out the details. A chill wrapped around him like a wet blanket, drenching his courage. It was no longer just a shadow but a presence, hanging on the edge of their campsite, a nightmarish specter that didn't belong in this world. "Ben, maybe we should." Maya started, her voice a fragile thread that threatened to snap under the weight of the darkness. But before she could finish, the form lunged forward, a wild movement imbued with sinistrous energy. "Run!" Jake shouted, breaking the spell that held them captive. They turned in unison, arms flailing, legs pounding against the forest floor. Twigs snapped underfoot, echoing like gunfire in their minds. But every ounce of their racing hearts urged them to flee, to escape whatever horror had disturbed their peaceful night. Which way? Ben wheezed, adrenaline surging. The sounds of their footsteps echoed, swallowed by the oppressive trees around them. He could still hear the voice, a desperate blend of familiarity and malice. Help me. Bennett clawed at his sanity, tugging him back toward the figure. It's not real, Jake yelled, tearing through the underbrush. Just keep going. With that, the group sprinted deeper into the woods, leaving the echoes of laughter and pleas behind. But the forest was relentless. Shadows danced, and the night pulled at their clothes, trying to drag them back into its suffocating embrace. Maya stumbled, her foot caught on a gnarled root, and she fell hard. They spun back, panic flooding their thoughts. Maya! Ben shouted, rushing to her side. She looked up, face pale, eyes wide. I can't, my ankle. The realization struck them. They couldn't leave her behind. Just try to stand, Jake urged, fear inching into his voice. But that voice, the voice tugging at Ben's mind, returned, this time sweeter and more insidious. Ben, please, it's me. The words were wrapped in affection, reminiscent of an old friend or a beloved sister. Each syllable melted into the shadows, urging him to listen. He fought against it. It didn't matter how familiar that voice sounded. They heard the stories. It was a trap, and yet how could it be? Maya, get up, Ben yelled, gripping her arm as he tugged. The weight of indecision pressed down on him. On one hand stood loyalty and love, and on the other loomed the chilling tales of deceit that threatened their very lives. The laughter returned, now just above them. Join me, it echoed, swirling into a taunting melody. The darkness grew thicker, and the trees seemed to sway with glee, anticipation crackling in the air. Ben, Maya gasped, her voice tinged with terror as she pointed. Look, there, standing at the tree-lean, was the figure again, now illuminated by a silvery moonbeam that cut through the canopy. It moved like a living shadow, shape-shifting before their eyes, morphing into something that sent a cold shiver down their spines. We need to go. Now, Ben screamed as he hoisted Maya to her feet, wrapping an arm around her waist. They staggered away from the malevolent figure, but with each step, the voice pulled harder, escalating in desperation. Ben, please help me. His mind reeled. Was it someone he knew? A friend long gone? The image congealed into a cruel whisper. Just as clarity dawned, the ground beneath them trembled, a low growl vibrating through the forest floor, shaking leaves and stirring the creature lurking in the dark. The echo of their breaths rushed back at him, but as they fled deeper into the wilderness, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow running into something far worse than just the Skinwalker. And as the shadows twisted ominously around them, a new question loomed larger than the terror they felt. What if the true horror was not what was hunting them, but what they had unknowingly invited into their camp? Branches whipped at Ben's arms as they crashed through the dense underbrush. The familiar trails twisted into a chaotic nightmare. Every breath felt like ice, choking any remnants of hope. Maya leaned heavily against him, her ankle twisting awkwardly with each step. Ben gritted his teeth, muscles straining as he struggled to support her weight. Just keep moving, Jake shouted ahead, his eyes darting, picking through shadows as if they might spring to life. We can't stop. Where do we go? Ben snapped back, the panic vibrating in his voice. We can't just run blindly. Toward the cliff, Jake said, pointing. I know a path. We'll use it to get up and find a place to hide. Are you sure? Maya stammered, her breath uneven. The figure lingered in Ben's mind, every tendril of its laughter wrapping tightly around him, dark and suffocating. Just trust me, Jake urged, guilt flaring as he risked their safety on an instinct. They veered toward a narrow gap between two jagged rocks, leading to a steep, spiraling trail that cut through the gloom. With no time to think, they pressed forward, hands gripping at the stone, drawing themselves higher. A sudden howl pierced the air, a haunting sound that vibrated in Ben's chest. They quickened their pace, but the noise echoed again, the unmistakable voice that clawed at Ben's sanity, mingled in the demon's laughter. Come on, Ben. Just help me. Stop it. He shouted back at the shadow, the words bursting from him with such force that they surprised even himself. Maya flinched and he shot her a glance. I'm sorry. We have to keep moving, do you understand? Maya met his gaze with wild eyes, the fear barely contained. What if it's true? What if it's someone we know? No. Ben slammed to a halt, his heart thumping like a drum in his ears. This is what it wants us to doubt, to falter. It's a trick. As they climbed, the shadows thickened, a tangible darkness that seemed to watch them, waiting. Every rustle made Maya gasp, and Ben felt the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes crawling down his spine. They reached a small outcropping, a relatively safe haven but still exposed. Hurry! Jake urged as they all collapsed against the stony ledge, breathless and shaking. The cliff dropped away beneath them, a black abyss filled with whispers of what lay below. Do you think it's gone? Maya asked, her voice a mere whisper. Not a chance, Ben replied, scanning the night sky that was awash with stars. They felt like pinpricks of light in an encroaching darkness. The sound of rustling leaves made all three freeze, heartbeats quickly finding an erratic rhythm. The silhouette loomed again, prowling at the base of the cliff, its shape fluid and menacing. It stared upward, its gaze heavy upon them, and though Ben couldn't see its eyes, he felt their weight like lead. Maya, Jake warned, his voice trembling. Stay down. But the deception continued. The air shifted. An intoxicating blend of familiarity danced in Ben's mind. Help me. The voice broke against the rocks with a cruel laughter. It filled the crevices of his soul, a beckoning he fought to ignore. Resist it. He barked at both Maya and Jake, who were as visibly shaken as he felt. We can't listen. In that moment of tension, the voice turned sinister, dripping with mock concern. Why would you leave her, Ben? Don't you love her? Doesn't she deserve your help? The shadows seemed to pulse with laughter, waves of energy thrumming through the ground as the figure raised its head, revealing a grotesque smile that twisted and curled into something unrecognizable. Ben stumbled back, instinctively circling Maya with his arms. No. That S when the ground shook again, a deep rumble emanating from the heart of the forest, merging with the malevolent laughter. A veil of darkness surged toward them, wrapping around their legs, pulling them closer to the edge of the cliff. Ben! Maya wailed, her grip tightening on him, panic creeping into her voice. He could feel the horror creeping in, the realization that they had become part of something far more dangerous than an ordinary skinwalker. The true nightmare wasn't just what lurked outside. It was the darkness within themselves that it had awoken, and as the cliff began to crumble beneath them, Ben faced the terror of both the shadows and the truth, a shadowy figure flickering in and out of existence, and the question that hung heavy in the air. What if what they ran from wasn't something that came out of the woods, but a part of them they didn't escape? Panic surged through Ben as he fought against the shadowous pull, the sounds of Maya's cries blending with the dark laughter that echoed off the cliff walls. He could feel the earth shifting beneath him, crumbling like their resolve. With a burst of adrenaline, he tossed his body backward, dragging Maya with him, their faces pale and wide-eyed as they teetered on the edge of despair. Hold on, Jake shouted, seizing a boulder that jutted out like a lifeline. The three of them clawed at the ground, scrambling for purchase on the unstable rock. The laughter faded for a moment, leaving a chilling silence that wrapped around them, suffocating. But that silence was broken by a guttural growl from the shadows below. They weren't alone. Thick mist slithered up the cliffside, swirling around their feet, its cold touch clawing at their legs like icy fingers. What do we do? Maya panted, gripping Ben's arm so tightly it was as if she feared he would vanish. Get up, Ben urged, his voice strained. We need to climb higher. We can't stay here. Just as they turned to scramble up the slippery rocks, a flash caught Ben's eye, a fleeting glimpse of something watching them. He froze for a moment, heart pounding in his chest. It wasn't just one shadow, but a kaleidoscope of them, twisting and shifting in the mist, forming shapes that felt too familiar. Faces, eyes, mouths wide in silent screams. He shook his head violently, as if to dislodge the images. This was no time for doubt. They had to keep moving. Now, he yelled, finding strength in the plea. They pressed forward, digging their fingers into the crevices as they climbed, inching upwards through the dark. Suddenly, the ground below them shifted again, the edge crumbling just as Jake nearly slipped. "Ben, help me," he rasped, eyes wide with terror. "Grab on." Ben reached down, their hands clasping desperately. He pulled with every ounce of strength, but it was clear he was not the only one fighting. Jake's face contorted in agony as a shadow pulled at him from below, dark tendrils wrapping around his legs, trying to drag him down. "No, not like this," Ben shouted, summoning every bit of resolve he could muster. The shadows wriggled and writhed, feeding off their fear. Ben's heart raced as he struggled to keep his grip. "Make it let go," Jake cried, his voice barely audible over the growling wind and encroaching darkness. Maya, trembling, cupped her hands around her mouth. "Let him go. You don't own him." A moment of stillness filled the air, followed by a cacophony of mocking laughter that rolled through the trees, each derisive chuckle turning Ben's stomach. It was as if the creature enjoyed their torment, savoring the tension that stretched tight between life and death and a pulse of sheer determination. Ben bellowed, "We're not yours." His voice echoed, defiant enough to shake the very roots of doubt they had been tethered to, with a sudden intensity. He felt the darkness begin to loosen its grip on Jake. The shadows shrieked, their shapes momentarily flickering as if caught in a spell of his conviction. They fell backward, and with one last heave, Ben yanked Jake entirely out of the grasp of the abyss. Gasping, Jake collapsed against the rock, relief flooding his face. But the shadows weren't done. They coiled around Ben, tightening around his waist. "Maya!" he shouted, as he felt the weight of despair crashing back down. She surged forward, a fleeting spark of hope in her eyes. "No, I won't let you take him." In that moment, the shadows pulsed violently, reacting to the strength of her words. Rising above everything, like a beacon against the darkness, Maya yelled back, "Help him." One determined shove from her and the pull stopped, just for a heartbeat. Ben seized the chance, breaking free of the grasp, charging away from the edge, sweat stinging his eyes. The cliff was a daunting silhouette above them, yet they pressed on. "Where do we go?" Maya gasped, glancing backward as the shadows recoiled and shimmered like smoke. Jake stumbled, catching himself on a nearby tree. "There, toward the dense woods. We need cover." As they sprinted through the twisted trees, the air thickened, the laughter chasing them like a relentless tide. Each step felt heavier, the woods alive with whispers, and with every rustle the familiar voices taunted them from every direction. "How do we stop it?" Ben panted, scanning for an escape in the flickering gloom. Maya's voice trembled as hope faltered. We can't run forever. It knows us." But deep inside, Ben felt a surge of desperation. "No, we can turn this around. We have to face it." But just as he spoke, a flicker of movement caught his eye, and the shadows shifted, forming into a familiar face the very essence of his deepest fears. And there it was again. The fear crept back, clawing for the surface. Ben struggled against its presence, but it loomed ever nearer. The last whisper in his mind echoed louder. What if the shadows weren't just out there in the forest, but lurking within you all along? As the figure stepped from the shadows, it raised a hand, its coldness cutting through the night, and Ben knew they were far from safe. Even though they escaped the cliff's edge, had they escaped what truly haunted them? Or were they merely running toward another darkness waiting to consume them? The figure stepped forward, and the moonlight revealed a face that twisted memory into terror. It wore a mask of familiarity, the very essence of the worst parts of Ben's past. It was a fragment of his own guilt, manifested from that time he had failed to protect someone he loved. "Ben," the figure whispered, each syllable dripping like venom. "You can't escape me. I am you." Ben stumbled back, breathing heavy, heart racing. The woods loomed larger, shadows pressing in, as if the trees themselves were closing ranks, blocking their path to freedom. "Ben." Maya yelled, her voice shaking him back to the present. Just behind her, Jake looked pale, eyes staring wide at the shape taking form. Don't let it in. Fight it. He could feel the tension in the air, thick like the fog swirling around their legs. The laughter rang louder, echoing off the treetops, mocking their fear. The figure stepped closer, illuminated by glimmers of moonlight, eyes dark and endless. It's feeding on your regret. It continued, its voice eerily calming. But you can turn that regret into strength. Isn't that what you really want? Ben's thoughts spiraled, memories rushing back like a tidal wave. He could see faces, feel the weight of decisions long regretted. No, you're not real, he shouted, as anger surged within him. Maya took a step forward, positioning herself between Ben and the apparition. Get out of his head. You don't own him. Her voice was like a lifeline tossed into a stormy sea. That's cute, the figure sneered. But he knows the truth, Maya. He knows it was his fault. Feeling the shadows creep closer, he clenched his fists. You're wrong, Ben shouted. Those were my choices. They don't define who I am now. The air vibrated with his scream, a fierce determination echoing in the silence. And just like that, the shadows hesitated. The darkness that had been stifling their escape began to retreat, pulling away from the defiance in Ben's voice. Keep going, Ben, Jake urged, his eyes sparking with newfound hope. You have to fight it. Maya reached for Ben's hand. We're with you. Together. Ben nodded, drawing strength from the connection. They were united against the dark force that sought to tear them apart. The figure faltered, features flickering with uncertainty, as the thick mist began to swirl violently around them. Face it, Maya screamed, as Ben took a step forward. You don't control us. We control this. The figure laughed a horrid, twisted laughter, but Ben drove through its mockery. He focused on the strength he felt from his friends, pooling every ounce of will to confront the darkness. And if you're a part of me, then you can also be my strength, he declared, echoing the truth he finally accepted. I won't let you win. The shadows shrieked, a horrid cacophony piercing the air as they quickly receded. Ben, Maya, and Jake stood firm, the light from the moon growing brighter, illuminating their path. Together they moved forward, intent on breaking free from the suffocating grip of their pasts. But just as they stepped through to what they thought was safety, the ground trembled beneath them, and with a terrible finality, the forest roared back to life. Branches twisted and swiveled like snakes, creating a barrier. Where do we go now? Jake shouted, as panic swept over them again. Look, Maya pointed ahead, where an opening appeared in the woods, revealing a faint glimmer of light. Is that? Ben's voice faded into the air as he dashed forward, heart racing anew. Yes. Maya took off after him, determination shredding the last remnants of fear. But as they sprinted toward the glowing light, Ben felt a chilling sensation creep back, wrapping around him like a cloak. The path ahead shimmered, but beneath it, he sensed a gathering darkness, a promise that this was far from over. What if the shadows aren't gone? What if they're just waiting for the right moment to strike? The air crackled with tension as they reached the threshold of light, but the woods hissed around them ominously, promising that the fight had only just begun. As Ben pushed through the underbrush, the glimmering light ahead felt like a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness. Maya and Jake followed closely, but doubts clawed at Ben's mind. Had they truly won, or had they merely dived deeper into a trap? He felt the shadows loom behind him, coiling and stretching, as if jealous of the warmth they sought. Don't look back, he urged himself, pushing forward, forcing his legs to move faster. But it was hard to ignore the whispers slipping through the air, taunting him, hinting at failures far beyond his imagination. Ben, Maya's voice snapped him back. This way. She pointed towards the opening, where the light flickered like a far-off star. Are you sure about this? Jake's breath came quick, fear etched on his face. Do we have another choice? Maya pleaded, the determination in her eyes igniting a spark in Ben's chest. With a tight-lipped nod, he ventured into the light that glimmered ahead as they stepped through the threshold. An intense chill swept over them, robbing the warmth of the moonlit night. They found themselves in a clearing drenched in silver light, the trees standing sentinel around them, guardians of a sacred ground or perhaps something altogether more sinister. "Where are we?" Jake asked, scanning the eerily still space. The air felt charged, buzzing with an unspoken presence. "I don't know," Ben replied, instinctively placing himself between his friends and the treeline. "But we need to be careful." Maya took a cautious step forward, her eyes narrowing at a large stone in the center of the clearing. Glyphs were engraved on its surface, twisted shapes that seemed to writhe and change under their gaze. "What if this is a trap?" she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "Or a way out," Ben suggested, though his heart raced with uncertainty. Just then, the shadows returned, this time more solid, slipping from the trees like water pooling on the ground. They inched forward, dragging tufts of darkness, forming shapes that seemed to mock the light surrounding them. "Stay back," Ben shouted, clenching his fists as he faced the encroaching figures. "No," Maya screamed, reaching for him. "They're here to take you back." "Ben, we've got to get out," Jake shouted, panic spilling over as he turned toward the treeline, eyes wild. Ben's heart pounded louder than the beating of the shadows. "I'm not going anywhere," he asserted, stepping into a fighting stance, but deep down, insecurity gripped him. What if they were right? What if his past truly was an inescapable part of him? In that moment, the figures surged forward, whispering secrets of regret. "You cannot outrun your sins," they hissed in unison. A chorus of voices he recognized all too well. Maya stood firm, shaking her head. "You're not him. You're stronger than this." Suddenly, with every ounce of fear transformed into fury, Ben roared back. "You want me? Then take me on my terms." The air thickened with tension, and a blinding light burst from the stone in the center of the clearing, illuminating the darkness. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of sound that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them, as they dwindled back into the treeline. "Now, move," Maya called, pulling Ben and Jake towards the stone as the light pulsed violently, distorting the air. Ben hesitated for a heartbeat. Had they really turned the tide? But the shadows weren't gone, merely waiting, lurking. As they reached the stone, the ground lurched, and a rift opened wide beneath their feet. Panic ignited once more. "Jump!" Ben yelled, the only thought running through his mind. They couldn't afford to be taken now. One by one, they leaped into the nothingness. Darkness swallowed them whole, plunging them into an endless abyss, as the last echoes of the shadows clawed at their backs. Time stretched and twisted, with no sense of direction or time. As the darkness closed in, Ben felt a horrible realization settle in his gut. This wasn't over. Whatever dwelled in those woods was still after them, and only now, in the depths of a void, did the true nightmare reveal itself. Where were they headed? What awaited them on the other side? The moment they landed, their bodies hit the ground with a jarring thud. Panic surged through Ben's veins as he sprang to his feet, scanning the new surroundings. The air was different here, thicker, almost suffocating. Bright beams of light filtered through a canopy of twisted branches, casting an unsettling glow on everything around them. "Maya? Jake?" Ben called out, his voice echoing into the silence like a desperate plea. They responded almost at once, their faces pale, brows furrowed with anxiety. "What just happened?" Maya gasped, brushing dirt from her arms. "We jumped into something," Jake muttered, eyes darting nervously. The erratic light danced around them, illuminating the vague outlines of shadowy figures lurking at the periphery of the clearing. The figures were silent now, watching with hollow eyes that sunk deep into their inky faces. They didn't advance, yet Ben felt their gaze bore into him, heaviness pressing against his chest. "Are we still in the same place?" Maya asked, stepping closer to Ben. "Or is this another trap?" "I don't know," Ben replied, mismatched thoughts racing in his mind. "But we can't stick around to find out." Jake nodded, visibly shaking. "Let us keep moving." As they ventured deeper into the unsettling woods, Every sound amplified a rustle of leaves, a snapping twig beneath their feet. It seemed as if the forest itself held its breath, anticipating what would come next. The trees morphed into grotesque forms, their trunks twisting as if caught in an eternal struggle. Shadows replayed in his mind, whispering echoes of his past mistakes. He could not shake the feeling that they were being hunted by something he couldn't quite understand. And then, a distant snicker broke through the tension, sending chills racing down Ben's spine. What was that? Maya's voice trembled as she clutched Ben's arm. Ben's eyes darted around, hands clenched tightly. Just keep moving. It's probably just in our heads, but the snicker came again, this time ringing closer. What does it want? Jake croaked, each word frail with fear. It's toying with us. Ben replied, forcing his voice to remain steady. Like it knows who we are. Suddenly, the path ahead dissolved into a vast clearing. In the center stood a massive figure cloaked in darkness, its shape resembling a monstrous silhouette, with slashing claws and eyes glowing like embers in the night. What is that? Maya whispered, practically frozen in place. It looks part human, Ben stammered, stepping back involuntarily. The figure stretched, revealing a face twisted with malice, reflecting the very regrets Ben had tried to escape. Admit it, the figure hissed, its voice skimming the edges of Ben's mind. You can't escape me. Not in this world. Not in any world. The weight of its words hung heavy in the air, almost suffocating. In that moment, Ben felt stripped bare, exposed in a way he had never anticipated. We can fight it, Maya declared, though he could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. No, Ben shouted, urgency thrumming through him. We have to find a way out. Now. He turned to run back the way they came, dragging Maya and Jake with him. But every twist and turn seemed wrong. Nothing felt right. Just shadows and terrifying whispers. Where do we go? Jake cried, his breath hitching in terror. There's no exit. Ben's heart raced. It had taken them so long to escape the last place, and now it felt like a cruel joke. Was this the end of their journey? The stone, he yelled, realization hitting him like a freight train. We have to get back to the source of the light. As they darted through the dark maze of trees, the sinister laughter pursued them, wrapping tighter around their minds as the dread closed in. Just as the light of the stone flickered into view, they skidded to a halt. The shadows loomed closer, moving with a predatory grace. Surrounded, hopelessness crept beneath Ben's skin. There was no turning back. Do we go for it? Jake panted, panic rising within him. Follow my lead, Ben said, knitting his brow. We might just stand a chance. But as they edged closer to the light, a seismic tremor shook the ground, splitting it open around them. Everything changed in an instant. Had they just jumped from one nightmare into another? With the shadows lunging at their heels, the clarity of the moment struck Ben. He was about to find out the true meaning of fear. What awaited them on the other side of that dreadful rift? The rift yawned wide, a gaping maw of darkness and chaos. Ben felt the pull of it, a magnetic force inviting him to embrace the abyss. Go, he yelled, grabbing Maya's arm and yanking her forward. Jake stumbled behind them, the shadows closing in, the laughter swelling into a cacophony that clawed at their sanity. They plunged into the void, a freezing grip wrapping around them as they fell. Time lost its meaning. Seconds turned to hours, and the echo of their heartbeats drowned in the engulfing silence. Then, right before they hit the ground, the world around them collapsed with a thunderous crash, and they tumbled out into yet another nightmare. Gasping for breath, the trio found themselves stranded on the edge of a deserted street lined with derelict houses, their windows shattered like the eyes of the long-forgotten. An unnatural fog slithered around their ankles, thick like molasses. What happened? Jake panted, his eyes wide with uncomprehending fear. I don't know, Ben admitted, scanning the ominous landscape. Shadows moved in the corners of his vision. But we've got to keep going. The fog thickened, wrapping tighter around them as they started down the street. The stillness was suffocating, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing in the dead of night. Each step seemed to draw out specters of their fleeting thoughts, the laughter from the shadows, the hiss of regret. Would they ever be free of this torment? As they passed a crumbling house, the door creaked open with an eerie invitation. A chill washed over Ben. "We should check it out," he whispered. "Are you crazy?" Maya shot back, her voice trembling. "If there's anyone here, maybe they can help us," he insisted, curiosity battling against dread. Cautiously, they stepped inside, the air thick with dust and the smell of decay. The darkness inside was alive, twisting and curling like a living entity. Ben felt as if countless eyes were watching him. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. In the corner of the dimly lit room, a figure stood shrouded in shadow, its features obscured. The silence stretched, and in that moment, Ben's heart dropped. It was the creature, a promise of their worst fears incarnate. "Why have you returned?" The creature rasped, voice echoing through the emptiness. "We didn't mean to," Ben stammered, words tumbling out in a panic. "We just want to get out of here." The figure stepped closer, illuminating its predatory grin. "You can't leave. You didn't finish what you started." "You're mine." Ben glanced back at Maya and Jake, whose faces mirrored his horror. There was a weight to those words, a chilling reminder that their pasts were stitched into the fabric of this monstrous world. "We never wanted this," Jake shouted defiantly, his voice shaking. The creature laughed, the sound high and mocking. "Then why do you linger? You think running will save you?" Ben's pulse raced. His thoughts spiraled. Could they fight? Could they bargain? What did it want? "Listen." He stepped closer, driven by a mix of desperation and defiance. "You said we didn't finish what we started. Tell us what that means. What do you want from us?" But the creature only grinned wider, revealing jagged teeth. "You know what you owe me? Ben, you can't escape your truth." A sudden flicker of hope ignited within him, a chance to reclaim what had been lost. But before he could gather his thoughts, the ground trembled beneath them, and the room began to shift and twist in impossible ways. The walls warped, folding inward, and the house groaned as if alive. "Run!" he shouted, pulling Maya and Jake with him back out into the street. But as they stumbled back into the thick fog, the laughter of the creature echoed around them, reverberating through the street and swallowing them into the night. Ben's heart raced as shadows danced, threatening to consume them whole. "We have to face it," he shouted to Maya, urgency surging in his veins. "We can't just flee from our fears." But would confronting their past mean doom? Or was there yet hope? As the darkness swallowed them once more, the true question gripped Ben's heart. Was it already too late to change their fate? The fog clung to them like a shroud, dense and suffocating. Ben could feel the weight of it pressing on his chest, each breath a battle against the terror threatening to pull him under. The face of the creature loomed in his mind, its chilling words echoing like a death knell. "Where do we go?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper, panic threading through her words. "Anywhere but here," Jake replied, his eyes darting nervously. They moved forward, their footsteps muffled by the thick mist, a disorienting silence enveloping them as they stumbled deeper into the eerie landscape. Each house they passed seemed to loom larger, shadows leering from the broken windows. An unnatural chill rolled through the street, wrapping around them, and Ben shivered, glancing back at the path they had taken. "Do you think it's still following us?" Jake asked, the tremor in his voice revealing his true fear. "We'll never know unless we stop," Ben said, determination poisoning his voice. "We have to confront it." Maya's eyes widened. What if we can't? What if confronting it only brings it closer? The uncertainty gnawed at Ben, but he shook it off. "It's the only way, Maya. We can't keep running. This makes us weak. We were brought here for a reason, we have to uncover it." Feeling emboldened, they pressed on until they reached a clearing. A towering old tree stood there, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. It felt wrong somehow, a palpitating pulse emanating from its very core, making the hair on the back of Ben's neck stand on end. "What is this place?" Jake whispered, awe and fear blending in his tone. "I don't know," he answered, drawing closer. "But something's alive here. Without warning, the mist swirled violently, lifting and twisting with a life of its own. Ben gasped as shadows formed from thick vapor, swirling around them like banshees, filling the air with a low, resonant hum. He felt the weight of dread wrap tighter around him. And then, the laughter returned shrieking and mocking, reverberating through the clearing. You think turning back will save you? Taunted, echoing from everywhere and nowhere at once. Enough! Ben shouted, instinctively stepping forward. No more games. The laughter ceased abruptly, leaving a suffocating silence. From within the shadows, the creature emerged, its predatory grin splitting the darkness. You have such fire, Ben, but fire burns too brightly. It will consume you. What do you want from us? Ben pressed, unwilling to back down. Tell us how to escape this. Give us a chance. The creature coiled closer, each movement calculated and sinister. It's not what I want. It's what you must find. It hissed, its voice rasping like jagged glass. Your truths will betray you. Identify your sins and you may yet find your way. The world spun, and suddenly the ground shifted beneath them, the roots of the old tree twisting and writhing like snakes. Ben fell to his knees, staring in horror as visions raced through his mind, grieving memories, buried truths clawing their way to the surface, each one like a stone thrown into a restless sea. You're wrong, Maya shouted, her voice fierce. We won't be your puppets any longer. But the shadows thickened, swirling around them, enveloping them under the weight of their own fears. As the laughter crescendoed once more, Ben understood. To break free, they would have to do what they feared most, remembering what they had buried deeply and wrestled with for too long. A confrontation awaited, one that could either unleash their power or bind them forever. Are we ready? He asked, his voice trembling. The fog grew thicker, smothering their responses, suffocating their hopes. With the creature's laughter ringing in their ears, the question lingered. Could they confront their truths? Or would the shadows drag them into eternal darkness? The air around them crackled with anticipation, as if the nightmare of their lives was only just beginning. Ben stood at the precipice of uncertainty, shadows swirling around him as he balled his fists, feeling the weight of every decision he ever made crash against his resolve. Maya and Jake were by his side, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. The creature loomed closer, its smile wicked and mocking, the eerie laughter echoing in their minds. Remember your truth, it hissed, voice slithering like fog through the air. And you may yet find your way. What truth? Ben snapped, anger rising. The whispers of regret and failures clouded his judgment. You think we're scared of you? We're stronger than our past. The shadowy figure leaned in, amusement dancing in its eyes. Stronger? You still underestimate how deeply your demons dwell. Each failure, each misstep, it's all within you. Ben's heart thundered in his ears. He glanced at Maya. Her eyes were wide, filled with apprehension and a flicker of understanding. Jake, pale and trembling, gripped Ben's shoulder tightly. Whatever it is, we can face it. Together. Right? Ben breathed, the connection empowering him like a lifeline. Let us confront what we've buried. With that, the air thickened, a tangible pulse running through the clearing as memories flooded in like tidal waves. Faces flashed. A friend he had been too late to save, a mistake that haunted him for years. The whisper of doubt lodged deep within. The shadows writhed, formed of the guilt he had tried to bury, each agonizing memory beckoning him to succumb. No, he shouted, forcing the revelation from his throat. I won't be defined by the moments I've lost. The words felt like fire as they broke through the stagnation. A roar echoed through the air, stunning the creature. You think defiance is strength? It sneered, but there was a tremor now, a hint of fear in its voice. You think courage will change the past? Courage is what's needed to face it. Maya interjected, stepping forward. She held her head high, defiance radiating from her every pore. We all have something to atone for, but we won't let it consume us. We choose who we are, not you, not anymore. Jake shifted beside her, breathing in fervor. What we've done has shaped us, but it won't hold us back. We're not running. We're facing this. As they united their voices, the shadows around them began to shift, rippling and pulsing as if reacting to their resolve. One by one, the silhouettes of familiar faces emerged, each entwined with pain and regret, yet now illuminated by the strength of Ben, Maya, and Jake. He could feel the darkness waver against the light they were generating together. "Stop! No!" the creature wailed, shadows recoiling from the unity before it, as if every word from their hearts laid bare a part of its essence. "You cannot escape. Watch us!" Ben shouted, his fear mutating into an unstoppable surge of power. "Our truth is powerful, our connection stronger." And just like that, light burst forth from the stone at the center of the clearing, illuminating their path. The creature's howl echoed through the night, a sound of raw despair as shadows shrank away, writhing like smoke escaping through their fingers. Ben, Maya, and Jake stood firm, eyes locked onto the heart of the battle, unwavering in their commitment. "Move!" Ben yelled, beckoning his friends forward. They raced toward the light as it began to pulse, each step a declaration of who they were, no longer bound by the weight of their dark pasts. With a final surge, they burst through the light. The shadows writhed and wailed behind them, but they emerged into a warm, dazzling expanse. Sunlight breached the horizon, welcoming them into a new day. They found themselves in the middle of a beautiful meadow, the air humming with life, the creek bubbling nearby like a long-forgotten lullaby. Felt surreal, this freedom. But it was real. Ben dropped to his knees, the weight of everything lifting from him like a great storm dissipating. Maya and Jake fell beside him, the three of them, hearts racing and souls revived. "We did it," Maya whispered, tears glinting softly in her eyes. Together, Jake echoed, strength evident in their bond. Despite the terror they had faced, they had emerged stronger, more resilient. They turned to each other, knowing the journey was far from over but grateful for the road they had traveled together. "This doesn't end here," Ben said quietly, determination returning. "The shadows will always be part of us, but we'll face them no matter what, together." And with that, the sun climbed higher, washing over them like a promise. It felt like hope, fierce, unyielding, enough to illuminate even the darkest corners of their souls as they rose to their feet, ready to face a world full of possibility. One truth became crystal clear. They were not alone on this journey or the next. Now, before you leave, let us connect. You need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive content coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support our mission to bring you thrilling stories. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts on this incredible ending. We want to hear your theories and reactions. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and spread the thrill. Don't wait even one more second, join our community now.